Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my, oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lanes, the home of rock and roll.
So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. We have a jam-packed show for you today. Hey, we have lots of sports action going on right now, so let's just get right to it. Hey, after a fantastic Final Four Saturday with Gonzaga, well, you know what they did? They barely edged South Carolina, and the UNC Tar Heels on Saturday night, hey, beating Oregon by 1 point. Well, last night, well, the Zags and the Heels traded baskets and leads the entire evening, but North Carolina ended the game on a 9-2 run to give Coach Roy Williams his third national championship in the last dozen years. Congratulations to them. Hey, I'm going to have John Brady, our basketball analyst, on once again to talk about the Final Four and obviously the final game and our thoughts about the tourney as a whole. Hey, the men's Final Four weekend was great, but how about the women? They produced one of the greatest upsets in basketball history as the Mississippi State Bulldogs broke the UConn Huskies' incredible 111-game winning streak. That is truly remarkable. The bubble burst for the Bulldogs, however, on Sunday night as head coach Dawn Staley and the South Carolina Gamecocks, well, they won their first national championship ever. And congratulations to them in the Palmetto State. Hey, speaking of basketball, the Pelicans, they've been playing much better. Hey, they've won 8 of their last 12 games, can you believe it? Including a split over the weekend over Boogie Cousins' old team, Sacramento, and Sunday's loss, of course, to the Chicago Bulls. Hey, the Pels are 33-44 with 5 games left, including tonight's home finale against the Denver Nuggets. And let's switch some gears to the horses. Last year it was Mo Tom, and Tom's ready, representing Louisiana at the Kentucky Derby. This year, it's a horse named Gervin who won the Louisiana Derby. Hey, congrats to trainer Joe Sharp. We're going to try to get him on this show, and good luck next month at Churchill Downs. And on the diamond, LSU, the Tigers, well, they're officially in a free fall as they have now lost 5 of their last 7 games, including a 7-6 loss to Tulane last week and also 2 out of 3 games in each of their last 2 SEC series against Florida and Texas A&M. Hey, but none were nearly as heartbreaking as that Sunday loss they just suffered, 4-3 to the Aggies. LSU had a 3-0 lead with 2 outs in the ninth, but A&M won it with a 3-run home run in the ninth with 2 outs. Truly heartbreaking for head coach Paul Maneri and the Tigers. The Tulane Green Wave, however, are trending in the opposite direction. Congrats to them. After a really slow start to the season, the Wave have now won 7 of their last 10 games, including the winning this weekend's conference series opener against South Florida Bulls, who, by the way, came into town with a 23-3 record. Impressive. Hey, tonight, Tulane is at UNO, so that should be a fun game to check out. Hey, speaking of baseball, the Major League Baseball season started on Sunday, and the official opening day was actually yesterday. Will Clark is going to be with us. That's right, the great Jesuit player, San Francisco Giant, played in Major League Baseball for many years, one of the greatest players in history, will be joining us again on this show. And yes, I absolutely love this time of year. Hey, because that means the New Orleans Baby Cakes, hey, they're starting their season 2. And yes, I said Baby Cakes. That's it. That's the Zephyrs' new name. And their season opener is Thursday. We cannot wait to have Tim Grubbs, the voice of the new Baby Cakes, to tell us all about it. It's a whole new era for baseball in the Crescent City. How about this? The 81st edition of the Masters Golf Tournament starts on Thursday. I have former PGA golfer Kelly Gibson, who has played at Augusta National, to break it down, the top candidates, who's going to wear the green jacket on Sunday. So it's a star-studded show with Clark, Gibson, Brady, and Grubbs. That sounds like a law firm. And blues guitarist Marc Stone. All that right here next on Primetime Sports.
Trucking up to Muscle Show on a dirty dog bus. Won't need to tell no tale, know what happened to us. Dreaming about a Cadillac, it's pimping green with leather seats. Something that's gonna tear up the round, rule these broken streets. I'm riding high.
Welcome back, Crescent City and beyond, the Gulf Coast, and of course the entire states, Louisiana, Arkansas, East Texas, and 19 other states. Welcome to Primetime Sports. We've been talking about March Madness literally since the beginning of March. Now we're at the beginning of April, and it is all over as far as the college ranks go. North Carolina, they edged Gonzaga last night. Roy Williams won his third national title in 6 tries, third in the last dozen years. Phenomenal. John Brady, welcome back to the show, my friend. This will be our last one for a while. We're going to have you on some during the NBA playoffs, but I can't thank you enough, first of all, for coming on.
Oh, it's been great. I appreciate you having me. It's been a lot of fun, and I don't think the basketball season could have made it without us.
No, it didn't. I mean, come on. Let's be frank, because we broke this thing down like it has to be broken down.
Absolutely.
But let's get into this weekend's games. We're going to talk about, obviously, the championship that happened just last night. But let's get into what happened this weekend, because I think South Carolina and Oregon might have made believers in some people that maybe thought this was a foregone conclusion that it might be North Carolina and Gonzaga. But both those teams, Frank Martin from the SEC and, of course, Dan Altman's team from Oregon, they played great basketball.
Well, I think both teams, Carolina and Gonzaga, were fortunate to win. I mean, how do you explain 1-point win or a 1-point loss? I mean, both of those games were outstanding. The Frank Martin season and what he did with that team was incredible. Everybody had written them off at the end by the way they closed, and they got beat in the SEC tournament. So you really can't tell how our team is going to respond once it gets into that NCAA tournament situation. And on the other end, we've always liked Oregon. We targeted them early. We liked the way they played. And just unfortunate they weren't able to win the game against North Carolina.
I'm gonna make a comment.
I think all 4 of those teams are pretty equal.
I'm going to make a comment about conference tournament winners just out of the blue. I just thought about this when you said that. None of them got to the Final Four, and only one got – I'm not talking about Gonzaga. I'm talking about the main 6 conferences, the Power 5 plus the Big East. And only one got to even the Elite 8. I mean, and that was Kentucky, okay? The rest of them, Duke bowed out early. A lot of these teams bowed out early. I don't know what that means. Does it mean anything? Because I'm not putting any credence when I do my bracket next year in what you did in your conference tournament, because it doesn't matter. I don't care how hot you are. It doesn't matter.
I don't think it has anything to do with it. I know when I was at LSU, usually at that level, when you go into the conference tournament, you know you're in the NCAA tournament. You may win a game or two to improve your seed 1 or 2 notches, but unless you win your conference tournament, you're going to be a 2 through 4 seed at worst if you're in the Southeastern Conference. So I never put a lot of emphasis on winning the Southeastern Conference tournament. Some people do,
right?
Particularly if you need to win some games
right.
to get into
no
the
doubt.
NCAA.
All right, now let's talk about – we couldn't have had really a much better weekend. I mean, you had the 2 games. Obviously, Oregon, they couldn't box out at the end. They lost that by 1 point, obviously, to North Carolina. We talked about South Carolina. That game came down to those free throws right in the last seconds to put it up. Ended up being a 4-point win for Gonzaga. But last night, same thing. This had more lead changes, ups and downs the entire game. Trading baskets, trading leads is what I like to say. But in the end, Gonzaga had the 1-point lead late. You know, they couldn't buy a basket, and they had some foul trouble. But it was Carolina at the end that pulled it out. And the score, 71-65, is really not indicative of how close that game was, because it was tight, and it was always a 1-point lead one way or 1-point lead the other. What's your breakdown of that game?
Well, 2 similar teams, very good defensively. Both teams are very physical. I had said that maybe foul trouble might make a difference in this game, and I think it did, particularly for Gonzaga. I think the whistle blew against them, and the lack of depth that they did have. But that type of game, a defensive game, is a tough game to officiate. A lot of times when the shooting percentages are down, people think the game is ugly because the ball's not going in the basket. Sometimes that's not the case. Maybe both of those teams are pretty good defensively, and that caused the game not to be as pretty from an offensive standpoint because they both played so hard.
I think one of the things that you can say that the entirety of the Final Four teams had, all four of these teams, you break them down individually, are great defensively, and that showed in the final.
Well, defensively, they're physical. It's a tough game to officiate, and I think that's why some emphasis has been on the officials and what happened there. Carolina's a unique team. They're a team that cannot win the field goal battle, but yet win the game because they do other things so well.
McDonald's All-Americans. Carolina had 5 of them starting in the game. Gonzaga's only got 1 on their team. He doesn't start. He's the freshman, Zach Collins. That tells me Marc Few can coach a little bit.
Well, getting in foul trouble hurt Zach Collins. I don't think he ever got in a rhythm of play because the whistle worked against him a little bit.
Yeah.
Marc Few's an outstanding coach, and there's no question in my mind that they'll be there next year by the good job that he does coaching.
Okay, we've been talking about the college basketball season pretty much from mid to late January on to now. Obviously, we got really deep into it, March Madness. But I got to ask you, when we look about the 3 weeks that just happened of the NCAA tournament, what are some memories that you're going to take away from this?
Well, I think it was one of the most exciting NCAA tournaments I've ever seen. Not necessarily a lot of upsets, but necessarily a lot of close, very good games. The thing I like about the NCAA tournament, it gives you a chance to get to know a coach, particularly Frank Martin. Let's say if you walked into a restaurant or a bar situation and the sound was off and you saw Frank Martin just coach.
You think he's nuts.
You'd think he's mean, he's mad at his players all the time. But the NCAA tournament allowed you to get into him a little bit deeper. You were able to see his interviews. He showed his care and concern for players.
Crying about his team.
He said the right things. He's an emotional guy. He is a passionate guy. And that was one of the things I really liked about the NCAA tournament, exposing what his personality really is and what he's really about.
Well, we love the close games, obviously, and we love the buzzer beaters. And there's 2 games that just stick out. One was in the Sweet 16 for me. It was Wisconsin and Florida. And Zach Showalter right there hit that improbable 3 to put it into overtime. He gives a discount double check over to your boy Aaron Rodgers, who's in the stands with the golfer Andy North.
Right.
And then they have the lead in OT, and then Chris Chiozza comes and hits this improbable game winner, and Florida goes on to the Elite Eight. That was remarkable. And then 2 days later, on Sunday, in the Elite Eight game, not between those two, but it was North Carolina and Kentucky. And at one point, Kentucky's got like a 5-6 point lead with just a few minutes to go. All of a sudden, Carolina goes on an 11-0 run. They've got the 5 or 6 point lead. You think it's Carolina. That guy right there, Malik Monk, hits a shot with about 6 seconds to go to make the comeback complete, to tie it up. You think it's definitely overtime. Carolina rushes down the court, and Luke May hits the big shot. And then, I mean, that's what I love about college basketball, these moments that we're watching in those kind of games.
Yeah, well, those moments, and then getting to know players and coaches on a personal level. Also, what I like to see is my man Marc Few finally fouled with single digits on the clock,
right.
Up 3, and put them on the foul line and won the game. Whereas if Florida would have done that, they wouldn't have had to have the last heroics for a 3-point basket because they allowed Wisconsin to tie it with a 3.
Yeah, John and I are texting back and forth. We're like, why aren't they fouling? Foul here. Everybody's got their, like I was listening to what Villanova coach Jay Wright was saying about, hey, why didn't you foul the guy? You wouldn't have needed that jump shot at the end to win the title if you had fouled the guy that had the ball. I think it was Marcus Page. And he goes, my rule is to foul him under 6 seconds, okay? And that's my rule. But we tried to get to him, and Page just kind of got away from everybody, hit the crazy shot, and then it turned out that it might have been the greatest thing ever because he had one of the greatest finishes. So you never know how coaches are going to do, but when you take away from the entire tournament and then getting to know the coaches, what do you think about next year? Anybody stand out for you? Maybe some guys coming back. A lot of these one-and-done guys, they're gone in the NBA. But what about next year?
Well, right now, Kentucky's really favored. If you look at some of the pre-next year.
But
that just goes
because
to
they
show
have new
you
freshmen coming
they
in.
got the number one recruiting class in the country, and it just goes to show you what kind of job John Calipari does, getting new players with those kind of egos to come in and share the ball, play unselfish, and play for one thing: what's best for Kentucky to win games.
Well, if these guys like Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox would stay 2 years, I mean, it's remarkable. Every year, I mean, from Anthony Davis to DeMarcus Cousins, every year this guy has these super pros that go one and done. I like the teams that stay together. We only have about a minute left, but I like the teams that stick around and get to be 3-4 year guys. Now, of course, you're not going to turn down a one and doneer, but isn't it easier to coach guys that have been around a little bit?
Well, certainly it is, to build continuity, have experience coming back, and those type of things. You know, Duke and Carolina had an experienced team this year that experienced the heartache
they really
last
did.
year.
And I think that helped them, right?
And it did help them experience this situation this year. You know, Duke and Carolina both haven't had a lot of players go early. It's hit Duke the last couple of years, but I think that's one of the reasons they sustained, because they have players that seem to come back.
I looked at that sign that girl was holding up, and I got to go, but the 1924 obviously went around 57. But I was at, now that I think about it, 82 in New Orleans, 93 in New Orleans, in the 2005 and 9. I was at all four of those national championships. This is the first Carolina one I've not been to since the 50s. But Roy Williams, congratulations. John Brady, I can't thank you enough.
It's been fun.
You've been phenomenal. This
great.
guy, you got a future in this business, son. All right.
That'd be great.
I got to thank John Brady. Hey, we got a huge show coming up next. Hey, we're going to have Kelly Gibson, one of the greatest golfers to come out of the state of Louisiana. He was on the PGA Tour. He is a PGA Tour professional right here to talk Masters next on Primetime Sports. Welcome back. Hey, we're going to put the Final Four to bed because we have really given its due the entire month. So I want to thank John Brady. We have a great show. Marc Stone, blues guitarist, is coming up next. And then we're going to wrap up with a lot of baseball talk with Will Clark. And I have Tim Grubbs, the Baby Cakes announcer. So it's going to be a fun rest of this hour. But right now, hey, when it gets to the beginning of April, there's only one thing I think about besides the start of the baseball season and obviously the playoffs coming up in basketball and all. But the Masters, that's it. I lived in Georgia for 20 years. I actually made it to Augusta 11 different times, sometimes as a fan, sometimes working in the media. But each time it was one of the greatest events I've ever been to in my life, and I've been to everything. The Masters has to be on your bucket list if you haven't made it. I know a guy that's been to Augusta. He is sitting right next to me. He is a PGA Tour professional, and I have his card to prove it. That's him, Kelly Gibson, New Orleans own, and one of the great golfers from the state of Louisiana. I'm giving that back to you. I was going to try to sneak it in my pocket, Kelly, but welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be on.
Masters Week. I mean, it's one of the greatest. I know you were big at the U.S. Open. This guy had the lead, or was close to the lead, I know, towards the weekend of the U.S. Open one year. But this is kind of the holy grail going on in Augusta this week, isn't it?
It truly is. It's especially for a pro who grew up in the South. It is the epitome of everything you would always want. Augusta National is a very special place. If you've never been, I highly recommend taking a visit during tournament week. The practice rounds are the most fun for me.
Yes.
I never got a chance to play in it as a competitor, but I've been there a number of times hosting people.
And you played the course as well?
Yes, I have had the opportunity to play the golf course, and it is the temple of all golf courses.
I mean, look how beautiful that thing is.
Well, I had a member friend of mine tell me one time that it's 70 years of perfecting something that was already perfect with an unlimited budget. So they are not shy to get it right as far as spending money, as far as accommodating the gallery, the pros, everything. They check every box there is as far as a sporting thing.
Well, and the funny thing is, I mean, people don't realize this. I think the average golf, maybe the golf fan will know, but the average casual observer, they change the course up. It's not always the same. I mean, obviously, you know that on U.S. Open courses, but the Masters at Augusta National, they change it up too.
Yes, historically, they define every shot. They measure everything there. They actually measure the way the trees are landscaped. So they're protecting this like a historic site. And depending on weather conditions, they will adjust tee markers and pin placements and things like that to challenge the players and keep the modern day player scoring about similar to what some of the older guys used to do.
The golfers from Louisiana that most of us heard about, certainly in this era, yourself, David Toms, who's still active. Hal Sutton had a lot of success. You see the three right there. These three, along with a good friend of yours, a guy that I considered a good friend as well, Tommy Moore, who passed away several years ago. I know you two are close, but that's some great golfers from this state.
Yeah, we had an incredible run early in the early 80s. Tommy obviously was the leader among a lot of junior players. He was ranked #1 in the world in 1980, and we were all trying to challenge him and follow in his footsteps, and he really dragged a lot of people with us here in South Louisiana. In North Louisiana was the same effect with Hal Sutton. You know, he cultivated a junior following up there, and David Toms and Chris Webb and Perry Moss, a number of other players, Brian Bateman, all from the Shreveport. So it was kind of fun to see that, the evolution of how you develop junior players. You have to have a ringleader to kind of carry the torch, and everybody gets in line and everybody benefits. I know when I went through the process of high school golf, when it wasn't really a popular sport as it is today, Tommy influenced so many kids. He probably landed about 20 kids at a Division I school based on us just trying to challenge him every day.
Well, I remember you and Tommy and Peter Tompkins. I mean, De La Salle was a powerhouse state championship caliber team. When did you know that you were really good?
Early on, it was just a passionate thing for me. You know, I was able to succeed at about 12.
By the way, love the mullet right here. Love it. Well, hey, that's all party in the back, baby.
I certainly wish I weighed that 167.
Right.
Whopping 170. Oh, I gained 3 pounds my rookie year.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the buffet table's been a little bit
Hey, I hear you. I'm right there with you,
when
brother.
you retire and you live in South Louisiana, it doesn't do too well for your health. But you know, I knew early on that this is something I wanted to pursue, and I challenged myself to reach the highest level. For me, got to play out there for 15 years, have a lot of great memories, and being out there taught me so much about charity work. I'm proud of what our charitable foundation's doing.
You guys are doing phenomenal. The Kelly Gibson Foundation, phenomenal.
And I'm in the golf course design business, building a golf course that's actually already complete over in Waterville, Ireland, and getting ready to break ground on a course in Stuart, Florida, at the Floridian with Butch Harmon.
There's
June
one, man.
1st. Yeah, that was at Bartholomew, which is really, really, really proud of the work there. That's in Gentilly, and that particular spot I'm standing on right there, that's what Matt Janella from the Golf Channel is actually sea level. And when you stand in that spot, you can see the effects of Hurricane Katrina, because all the houses are below that spot on the golf course.
Isn't that wild?
So we did that just as sort of a marker for us. We put that where we were standing right there is exactly sea level, and it's above all the houses.
All right, about 2 years ago, one of my prouder moments, I called Jordan Spieth to win. Everybody's like, that's obvious now, but he wasn't. He had never won anything big at that time. He was maybe the 7th favorite, and I pulled that one in. Jordan Spieth, I think, would be a kind of co-favorite with a guy, Dustin Johnson, right now, who's won 3 straight events. He's hot. But if you ever have a chance to take the golfer or the field, I think you always have to take the field. But when you look at these two guys, would you consider them right now, this day, this moment, the two top golfers in the world?
Oh, there's no doubt Dustin Johnson's the top player in the world right now. I don't even think there's a question mark there. You have some guys that are in the wings. Jason Day has gotten off to a rough start this year with some personal challenges, his health, and then now his mother's health.
Mother's, right, yeah.
So he's facing some challenges, adversity off the golf course. He's an incredible player.
He was hot last year, though, wasn't he?
Yeah. And then you've got Rory, who has tremendous talent, generational talent. You've got a number of other players like Ricky Fowler that can challenge this week. You've got old guys like Phil Mickelson. The beauty of Augusta National is it's somewhat predictable, but it's not really predictable. The last 9 holes are such incredible theater for television that you could sit there and watch all week and it can turn on a dime. Last year, Jordan Spieth had a 4-shot lead going into the 12th hole.
That's crazy.
And in a matter of 2 minutes, his life flashed before his eyes. I think he's one of the mentally toughest players that we've seen in a while. He's kind of tough, mentally tough, like Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus. It'll be really interesting this year to see how he rebounds, because the cameras will definitely be on him Thursday when he steps up to the 12th tee.
I have been, like I said, 11 times, and I've seen 2 of Tiger's wins, and that shot of Phil Mickelson, I think that's one of the greatest moments, certainly in my era that I've been to. But last year a guy named Danny Willett won, and the Masters has a way of doing that where they've had these one-time guys, Schwartzel or whatever, come in and just win, and you don't hear from them ever again. What makes the Masters that way?
Well, sometimes, you can catch a hot putter, and the key component at Augusta is the second shot golf course. It's pretty fair and wide off the tee box. But if we were in the studio here, one ball that lands on that table there and one that just misses can determine about 20, 12, 15, or 3 feet. So if your ball kicks to the right and rolls up 3 feet, all of a sudden you're looking great. And the ball that landed a foot left of that might roll 20 feet away and you three-putt. So it's really pinpoint accuracy on the second shots. Now, on the back nine on Sunday, controlling your breathing, controlling your nerves, and how you attack the par fives always seems to be an element on who's determined as a champion. Danny Willett last year's swing was so grooved the last 9 holes, and the year Phil Mickelson won, his first time he won, is the best I ever saw him swing. So the guy who's swinging really well late and is getting the bounces is usually the guy that's right around the
Well, I'm going to give you this gift certificate. While you sign the ball, I have a question, because Bubba Watson is coming to the Zurich.
$1,000. That's pretty awesome.
$1,000's nice, isn't it?
Can you bring me back on? This is better than building golf courses
Bill
right
Brown
here.
was like, why'd you only give me $5? So I'm saving it for Kelly. Bubba Watson won in 2012, 2014. He's going to be at the Zurich. What makes him always a threat to win at the Masters while you sign this ball?
Well, the golf course sets up well for him. He hits a big cut with his driver, and as a left-handed player, his length is in the same league as Dustin Johnson. And so that is a tremendous advantage when you talk about the par fives. When you look at Dustin Johnson, you look at Tiger, you look at traditionally at all the winners, they usually dominate the par fives throughout the week. Very seldom do you see a guy like Zach Johnson, who won a few years ago as a short hitter.
Love Zach Johnson.
He won in very tough, windy, rainy conditions.
I remember.
But the golf course does suit a long baller who draws the ball, and it does suit a left-hander who cuts the ball, a long-handed, right-handed golfer who draws the ball.
You know what I think a winner is?
Who's that?
Kelly freaking Gibson, right here. That's my man.
In my dreams, baby.
Check out his foundation. He does such great work for the kids here. He's got golf camps. Get out there. If you have a child that loves golf or anybody, a nephew, whoever, get him out in that golf camp. And if you got anything to donate, the Kelly Gibson Foundation is definitely a worthy cause. So I want to thank Kelly Gibson again for coming on. He is kind of our golf analyst now. We're going to have him on at least once a year, come in here and have some fun. I want to thank him again. Hey, we're going to go to the entertainment side. Yeah, I got Will Clark coming later, but I've got Marc Stone, one of the best blues guitarists on this planet. He's coming up next right here on Primetime Sports.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934. It is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. Hey, we had a couple sports guests earlier. Of course, I want to thank Kelly Gibson, who gave us the rundown on the Masters golf tournament coming up this weekend. And, of course, our weekly basketball analyst, John Brady, the former Final Four coach of the LSU Tigers. Hey, we have two more sports guests. One of the greatest hitters of all time, Will Clark, is coming up towards the end of the show. And Tim Grubbs is going to tell you all about the new baby cake season. But, this is a sports and entertainment show. And here's the entertainment part. I have one of the best blues guitarists, not only in the city, the state, but the entire country. His name is Marc Stone. He's got a new album out, and he's going to be playing French Quarter Fest. But for those of you that just want to get out and hear music weekly, he's all over the place. Check it out. But he's also every week from 8 to 11 at the Columns Hotel. That's p.m. by the way. So check that out on St. Charles Avenue in the area called, kind of close towards the Garden District, but right there on St. Charles, right before you get over there. Hey, Marc Stone, you were on the show last year.
How you doing, man?
So good to see you again, my friend.
Thank you, man. Great to be back.
Well, I got to get into it because they heard you play a little tune earlier. We're going to play another tune towards the end of the show. But talk to me about what's happening with you since I saw you last time.
Well, you know, it's festival season, of course, and we're very honored. We're going to celebrate our 10th anniversary of being the Friday opener at what's now called the Tropical Isle stage at French Quarter Fest, which is that beautiful gazebo right in Waldenberg Park near where the...
kind of kicks the weekend festivities off. I know the French Quarter Fest starts Thursday, but Friday kind of really officially gets going, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, well, talk about this new album, man. I mean, you got this thing coming out. We have a picture of it right here. I think you did a great job with the cover, but tell us what it's about.
Well, you know, I'm fortunate that we get to tour in Europe quite a lot. And last year, we did a band tour. I was out for about a month. I did a series of gigs with the four-piece band as well as some solo and duo sets. And brought our drummer, Terry Scott, who's from Homa, who had never been to Europe before with us. And it was a wonderful adventure. And we recorded one of the shows. And came out beautifully. We did a tour. We were in Austria, Germany, Luxembourg, France, and Switzerland, and it was just wonderful. And we got some great audio from one of the shows, and Jack Mealy over at the Music Shed did a beautiful job mixing and mastering the material. And it's officially dropping this Friday at French Quarter Fest.
All right.
Yep, we'll have them in hand. And Saturday night, we'll have a party to celebrate the release of the new CD at 3090 on Frenchman Street. We'll be there from 8 to 11 with the band, with special guests. And
so 3090 on Saturday night, okay?
That's right.
From 8 to 11. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of things you can keep up with. Obviously, you got 11 o'clock at the Tropical Isle stage on Friday morning, I should say. And then you had the thing Saturday night, and then also, obviously, the weekly thing at the Columns. But, hey, talk about the band in general. I know you played last year for us. You had the whole band. It was phenomenal. Is that the same band, or you kind of mix and match?
The band that I came in with last year is another project that I'm involved with called the New Soul Finders.
That's right, the New Soul Finders, right.
Yeah, with Marilyn Barberin, who cut a lot of the classic funk records with Eddie Bowe, the late great Eddie Bowe of New Orleans in the late 60s and early 70s, and that's an ongoing project. And Marilyn is one of the great funk and soul singers in New Orleans from the vaunted Barberin family, one of the historically important musical families here. And she'll be guesting with us Friday at French Quarter Fest. Maybe I can even talk her into coming out Saturday night as well. But the New Soul Finders will be playing the Wednesday between Jazz Fest weekends at the Little Gem Saloon.
Little Gem Saloon, by the way, is a little gem. I mean, it's phenomenal. Right there on Poydras.
Absolutely.
Not far from Walk-On.
Poydras and Rampart.
Rampart.
Street, yeah.
I got to ask you about the band, though, the Marc Stone Band. Tell me about that one.
The Marc Stone Band, I mean, you know, I've had this going for close to 20 years in different incarnations here in New Orleans. We travel a lot, do a lot of stuff in Europe. I actually have a keyboard player and a bass player who live in Europe, an Austrian piano player that I've been working with. I got stuck in Europe when Katrina hit, and I wound up...
Not a bad place to get stuck.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it sucked for everybody, but it sucked, you know, being there was definitely a cushion. And I got introduced to a lot of great musicians, and met a guy named Christoph Weibel, who's a wonderful piano player, and we've been working together for 11 years now. And a great bass player from Brooklyn named Lorenzo Mookie Wilson, who once upon a time was in a yes.
Say, did he play baseball for the
Mets?
Look,
I grew up. I was a Mookie fan.
The '86 Mets, baby.
I know, man. We all skipped school to go to the parade. I grew up in New York City.
One of the greatest teams of all time.
That's right, and one of the greatest errors of all time.
No doubt.
Yes,
no doubt. You're not going to get any arguments from me. By the way, he is a New Yorker by birth. Yeah. I know you grew up there. You came here. Kind of let people know that story again for the people that are just catching on to the show.
Well, I've been here since 1993.
Yeah.
Right when I was getting done with college, a friend of mine called up and said, look, I've moved to New Orleans. You've got to come here. It's the place for you. I know what you're into musically. So come on down. And I did, and I visited her and her boyfriend at the time, and they said, don't go home. I said, I got 6 weeks to get my diploma. And so in September of 1993, I moved into an apartment on Magazine Street and been here ever since.
Well, when you were playing out in the, you know, we did cut those little riffs you did before that people heard in the beginning of the show, and they're going to hear again. I had John Brady, I had Tim Grubbs. They were like, they were listening in the studio. They said, this guy is really good. You're a treasure here in town. I'm telling you, if you have not seen Marc Stone, you got to get out to see him. Hey, preferably go to the French Quarter Fest this Friday. Go to see him on Saturday at 3090, and that's going to be a great thing from 8 to 11. And then every Thursday at the Columns, he's one of our best, he's one of our favorites, and he's a mainstay here on Primetime Sports. His name is Marc Stone. I got to get you to sign this ball, but I think you signed one last year.
With all these greats, I am more than honored.
Well,
Thank
you
you,
deserve
sir.
to be. There's a gift certificate
right,
for you.
The new Delachey up on Maple. Absolutely.
Get yourself a little meal, and
I will.
at least you can get a glass of wine and meal there. And also want to get you on here. But that's it. That's Marc Stone. Seriously, I love having him on. Anytime you want to come back, my friend, you're welcome.
An honor and a pleasure.
Yeah, check him out. Hey, by the way, we're not done. I still have a couple more sports guests coming up, and I cannot wait. Stay tuned right here on Primetime Sports. That was Marc Stone. You heard again. We just had him as a guest, but also, how about that music clip from him? He is one of the best blues guitarists in the city of New Orleans, and I think in the entire country. Hey, we're going to switch gears back to sports, and it's time for baseball. Do you smell it in the air? It's baseball season, and it started in the major leagues. We're going to have Will Clark coming up next to talk about the beginning of the major league season. But right here in New Orleans for our AAA team, the New Orleans Baby Cakes, it all starts on Thursday night at the Shrine on Airline. I'm pretty sure what they call it. We've had him on before, and we'll have him on again. His name is Tim Grubbs. He is the voice of the Baby Cakes. I'm so used to saying Zephyrs, but here we are. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Happy New Year, Scott. Great to be here. Thanks for bringing me on.
It's a new era of baseball. This is what I'm going to say. It's a new era of baseball in the Crescent City because there's new ownership, a relatively new manager, relatively new GM, but definitely one thing is new, and that's the name.
No, that is definitely the name. And, you are right. It is the Shrine on Airline.
Okay.
But if you want to call it Zephyr Field, I don't think it'll offend anybody. It's one of those things. It's been the name of that stadium for 20 years, and I'm sure it's going to be tough to break people of habits. But
yeah, but okay.
The nickname's always been Shrine on Airline.
Okay.
So we're going with that as the team name.
But the Zephyr Field is officially gone, though, right?
Right.
Okay, so that obviously makes sense.
So when I come on a broadcast and say, welcome to the Shrine on Airline, where tonight the Cakes host the Memphis Redbirds, that'll be what you'll hear.
All right, well, let's talk about it. I had you on when they had the unveil. I had Cookie Rojas on, actually, the GM. And I want to talk about the night because it was I thought the way you guys came into it with the name change, it couldn't have been any better. It was a great event a few months ago, and there it was. Just talk about how this all came about in this night that we're looking at right here.
Obviously, a year ago, Lou Schweckheimer and Cookie Rojas and these guys all, came about and they took over the franchise. Well, the one thing that they found out is that Zephyrs was a name that was borrowed from Denver.
Sure.
And they really wanted to get something that was more New Orleans.
Right.
And they loved the fact that King Cakes and Mardi Gras was so a part of the city. And that's the reason why they switched to, that's where the King Cake thing, and then they worked with Baby Cakes, and that's where it came about. And obviously everybody loves the logo. And, it's taken a little time to get everybody adjusted to the names, but as I mentioned, the team will be the Cakes,
right.
Our jersey.
They're going to call them the Cakes,
call
right.
them the Cakes, and, it's selling a lot of merchandise.
Yeah, I have a bunch of the merchandise here, and the merchandise is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I was on board. It took me a lot less than almost everybody, I think. We always hear the name at first, you're like, whoa, that's weird. And then you start thinking about it, and you think about minor leagues and how kitschy it is.
And that's the thing people need to remember. I mean, there's the Albuquerque Isotopes and the El Paso Chihuahuas, and there's some of the merchandise, and obviously it all looks sharp. But there's so many weird names, the Lansing Lugnuts. That's the reason why you have to take a step back. That minor league baseball does have these unique names. And they want them to be, unique to the culture. And I tell you right now, I can't tell you how many people I have introduced to the fact that there's King Cakes. People from the other parts of the country, until we changed our name, had no idea that New Orleans was big on king cake.
Right.
They never heard of it.
Unless you've been down here for Mardi Gras, you have a relative, or you from
And they
here,
didn't know what king cake was. They didn't know what the baby was. And, now all of a sudden it's kind of opened up some of the culture, at least in the baseball world.
Well, I told you before, I am all in on the name. I love it. I think it's fun. I think it's like I said, kitschy with Kitschy. Hey, but here's the thing. You had to have had a lot of grief because I saw on the message boards, people were just killing the Zephyrs Now Baby Cakes for the name change. How did you combat that?
Well, I think as a franchise, we really didn't. We just kind of said, hey, let's just let them say what they want, But part of the reason why you make the change in November and not throw a first pitch till April is to let people adjust and adapt. And it's taken, 5 months. And I've heard personal friends of mine that live here that didn't like it at first, that now all of a sudden are like, you know what? I kind of like it now.
Yeah.
And I like this cakes thing, and it's not as strange and not as different as I thought it was going to be.
Well, listen, if it helps get merchandise sold, more importantly, it gets people in the stadium. But I think obviously the Zephyrs thing had kind of grown stale. People were not going to games, and I'm not saying that the name change is going to keep them there,
right?
Because you have to have product and you have to have fun at the ballpark and want to come with your family. But I think it will get people there initially to see what the whole deal's about.
Right, and that's just one of the steps. There's a lot of things that we're doing over there at the Shrine on Airline. We've upgraded a lot of the concessions. We've upgraded the ballpark. We've upgraded, obviously, the merchandise store and the logo. So those are just phase one. Obviously, we brought in high school football last year to have more events at the stadium. We had concerts last year. We got more concerts coming this summer and then in this fall. So we're just doing more things at the stadium and hopefully more improvements to the stadium in the upcoming years.
Yeah, I saw Lollapalooza, not Lollapalooza, at least one of those festivals.
The Vans Warped Tour is coming.
Vans Warped Tour is going to be outside, and I know you had Mumford & Sons last year.
Right.
Hey, the King Cake Baby, though, the actual, y'all have nothing to do.
That's not us.
That's not y'all.
That's not us. That's our neighbors. That mascot's been around since the Hornets.
Right.
Couple of years into the New Orleans Hornets.
But people think that maybe that is what gave them the impetus to come up with this.
I don't know how much it did because that's not our mascot. The one thing that we found out...
It doesn't look far off, though.
Our research... Our mascot is still Boudreaux. And the research said...
the mascot,
was that Boudreaux is the face of the franchise, and just get a new jersey and a new hat.
That new baby cake face, though, is awesome. I love the little, kind of angry look sometimes, and the happy look right there.
And wait till you meet our new hitting coach. Our hitting coach was not hired at the time we changed the logo.
Right.
His face is almost identical to the logo.
Arnie Baylor, the coach, is phenomenal. I saw him on 4th Down and 4. I think he does a great job with you guys. But I have to talk about some of the players. Justin Nicolino, obviously he was the starter on opening day last year. Destin Hood was a PCL All-Star. This is a true bona fide potential future star. And you have Isaac Galloway, JT Riddle, and Tomas Talise as just a few. Can you talk about them real quick?
Yeah, no, all those guys are coming back. We've got about 12 returning players from last year's team. Obviously, in minor league baseball, especially at the AAA level, it's a revolving door to some degree. We had 40-some players play for the team last year. So when I say 12 guys are back out of the 25, it's hard to say that because JT Riddle was only here a few weeks, but Destin Hood had a fantastic year last year, and he probably would have made that major league team for the Miami Marlins if they weren't so stacked in the outfield. I mean, they got Marcell Ozuna, they got Giancarlo Stanton, they got Christian Yelich.
Phenomenal outfield up there.
It's phenomenal. Yeah. So Destin will be back with us. We got some other veterans on the team, guys like Matt Dendecker, who was an SEC star, Brandon Barnes. So kind of filtering in a few other players and trying to put this together, and hopefully this team that you see take the field on Thursday is with us for a great amount of time, because if we can keep the Marlins healthy and keep the Cakes healthy, I think we've got a pretty good ball club.
It's going to be fun, and I can't wait. I will be there Thursday night. There's no doubt. You should make it too. Get on out to the ballpark. Here's a gift certificate. Hope you enjoy that. Get your wife a little meal and a glass of wine and have some fun. But this is Tim Grubbs. He has been the voice of this franchise for 15 years. We love him here. He is our hidden treasure. And get on out there and support this Baby Cakes team. Get on out there and see what the fun and the hoopla is all about. I'll be there, and I hope you will be too. Tim Grubbs, appreciate you once again.
Thanks, God.
Hey, coming up, I'm going from him to a Major League star. His name is Will Clark. He obviously played many, many years in the Major Leagues for the San Francisco Giants and several other teams. We'll get him next right here on Prime Time Sports. I told you from the start this was a jam-packed show, and we have the fifth of our 5 guests right here. His name is Will Clark. Hey, when you talk about baseball in the Crescent City in the state of Louisiana, it doesn't get any better. There's 3 names that you can only bring up as far as the greatest baseball players ever. One of them played in the 20s and 30s, Mel Ott, and he was one of the greatest. And obviously Rusty Staub out of Jesuit High School in the early 60s. He is the only player in Major League history that has 500 hits with 5 different teams. And then the guy that's most recent, his name is Will Clark. Played at Jesuit, graduated in 1982, went to Mississippi State, had a phenomenal career over there with the likes of Rafael Palmeiro, Bobby Thigpen, and of course Jeff Brantley. And then this major league career, he was one of the very best. When you're talking about sweet swings, well, in my opinion, there's Ted Williams and there's Will Clark, and I mean that. He played several years with the San Francisco Giants, many years with the Texas Rangers, a little bit with the Baltimore Orioles, and an end-of-the-career cup of coffee, and a great season with the St. Louis Cardinals. Will Clark, he was a guest on our show last year. He's back to talk about the start of the Major League season. How are you, my friend?
I am doing good, Scott. I appreciate you. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. Love to have you on. Obviously, I actually played against you, basketball, baseball, back in the day. You were fearsome then. Obviously, on the Major League level, I want to get there first because this time of season, this time of year when it gets to be, I know you've been retired for several years now, but do you ever still think about, hey, man, it's March is coming or February's coming. I got to get ready for spring training because that's kind of what you did for your entire life.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm a huge outdoorsman, and I do a lot of hunting and fishing, in the fall. And usually, once that January 1st hits, you start switching gears a little bit. I did it when I was playing, and now that I'm on the coaching side, I'm doing it as well. So, spring training's right around the corner, February and March, and then the season starts up first part of April. So, yeah, it's a progression, every year in my life.
We'll talk about that. People are, I think, curious of what you're doing now. You say you got some coaching going on. I know you're not a full-time bench coach, but you are giving hitting instruction. Tell people what you do with the Giants.
Well, my title is Special Assistant to the General Manager, and I cover the hitting side of things and also cover a lot of the mental side of things, how to make it through a full season, how to take care of your body, stuff like that. And, I'll be in San Francisco pretty much once every month. And then when I'm not in San Francisco seeing the Major League team, I'm also doing some traveling and seeing our minor league system also.
Hey, what would you say is the biggest difference between baseball when you came up in the majors, 1986? By the way, Will Clark, his very first game, very first at-bat, hits a home run against the great Nolan Ryan. I know he's heard that many times. But from that era to today's player, what would you say is the biggest difference, Will, that you've noticed?
One of the biggest differences I see is social media. With the advent of the iPhones and the internet and all that sort of stuff, people, they come into the clubhouse and they have their faces, buried in an iPhone or an iPad or something like that. And, that's not necessarily we did in our generation. We came to the ballpark and, from the minute we got there, we were working on something. We were messing with a swing or grip on your fastball or, how to throw a curveball or whatever. And you don't see that as much today as you did back in the day.
That Will, we're showing right now the Sports Illustrated cover, the Will to Win, with your eye black that always seemed to be there. That was one of your mainstays. Talk about what you felt when you were on that Sports Illustrated cover, because that is a dream for every kid.
Oh, Sports Illustrated had said that they, were thinking about using me for the cover, and they said they were going to have a photographer follow me around a little bit. And, it's one of those funny things that, every time you turn around, you're looking and all of a sudden somebody's poking a camera in your face. It's like, whoa. And, I enjoyed the experience. It was a lot of fun, but at the same time, I'm still out there playing baseball and still having a good time.
I'm going to say this, another cover that we have you on is with Marc McGwire. For those that don't remember, in the late 80s, early 90s, it was those two that dominated baseball. They were the toast of the Bay Area, obviously Will with the San Francisco Giants, and you had Marc across the bay with the Oakland A's. You ended up being teammates together, or at least in the same franchise with the St. Louis Cardinals. Talk about that era, though, when you two were the young guns coming up in the Bay Area.
Well, I mean, I was on one side of the Bay, and I was getting some notoriety, in the National League. And Marc was on the other side of the Bay, and he was getting quite a bit of notoriety, on the American League side. So it was a pretty good time to be in the Bay Area. Plus, on top of that, Joe Montana and Steve Young and 49ers were doing real well. So, it was good to be an athlete in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Hey, Will, your memories of growing up in New Orleans. I know a lot of folks here, a lot of Jesuit folks watch the show. You have anything that sticks out playing for the Blue Jays growing up here, as a high school baseball player?
Well, I was part of a Jesuit team in 78, 79 that won 4 back-to-back state championships. I mean, actually 4 of them in a row. So between prep and Legion, and that was 1979, 1980. And so, that was sort of the highlight of my high school career. But, playing baseball in the New Orleans area, they had a ton of talent back then. I know a lot of guys off my Jesuit team went on to play college ball, as did, some of the people that you played with at De La Salle, and some of the guys who played at Rummel, some of the guys who played at Holy Cross. So there was a lot of baseball talent in the city of New Orleans back then. It was great competition.
I just know one thing. You made a lot of guys that played second base actually play right field because no one wanted to get on the dirt. When you were up to bat, everybody's like, this guy's...
They backed up a little bit. They wanted a little bit better hop than they would get.
I guarantee you I backed up a whole lot. Anyway, Will Clark, I got to thank you again. I appreciate you taking the time at the beginning of the baseball season to come on the show, man.
It is my pleasure. This is the start of a 6-month grind, and what goes good early in the season might not go good later in the season. So that's the beauty of the sport. You got 6 months to figure it out and see if you can't close it out pretty good at the end.
You're one of the best of all time, my friend. Thank you so much.
All right, Scott, you have a great day.
All right, hey, when I say that, I'm not saying that because he's a guest. He was live on this show last year in April. He came on the phone. He's been all over spring training, but he is one of the greatest ever, certainly from the Crescent City. Hey, I have a lot of people to thank. Ron Yeager and Jim Dotson. Always love to have those guys come by the studio. Ron visited today. I want to thank them. They run WLAE. The good folks over at CST, Jeff Brenner and Ashley Coleman, I got to thank them as well. But the people in the studio, they get it done on a weekly basis. William Hill, Jay Smoove, my man Kenny Juno, and don't forget the Redhead Tsunami's contributions. I want to thank them all right here on Primetime Sports. See you next week. I've got one of the greatest, Charles Alexander. That's right, one of the greatest running backs in LSU history will be right here on Primetime Sports.